Hello everyone, back again with another rectification video here, because rectification is a very interesting subject. Now I have Buckethead here, the famous American musician, and only 2 events. We can use more if we do deeper research. We can use more, but I have the death of his father and the death of his mother. So this was a bit frustrating for me, mainly because I had some difficulty finding the birth time, and for the first time actually I have difficulty in rectifying something. So let's just begin with the transits, just so that I can give you an overview of how the thing goes and how I conduct my rectifications here. So using just transits, direct and converse. Just fixing my keyboard here. For the dates of death for his parents, his mother and father. So this is for the death of his father, direct transits. Now here I'm looking just for conjunctions with house cusps, and the clearest 2 I see are Neptune here opposing the 12th, and the south node in conjunction with the 8th. Very clear. I mean, this can count also the Venus here in conjunction with the 12th, the square from Mercury to the IC, but let's just use the planets from Jupiter to Pluto for now. So already we already know right now, just from these 2, that we're very close to the absolute correct birth time. If we look at the converse transits, we see a Saturn here opposing the 8th. The orb is 5 degrees. Oh, by the way, the orb that I'm using is the magical 6 degrees and 30 minutes, discovered by the astrologer Juan Estadia. So 6 degrees and 30 minutes is our operative orb in which the transit operates. Again, we see here Venus south node opposing the 12th, trying to look for a square here. No, there's an exact square from Mars to the 12th. Square to the 8th, there isn't any, but this is very important here. This south node Mars squaring the 12th, critical. For the mother, direct transits, well, they died around the same time, so the Neptune is common for them. Here we see Venus right on the IC. Of course, Venus is a planet related to women, females. Usually, when there's a female death, usually Venus squaring the descendant, Venus in conjunction or opposing the descendant, Venus on the IC or squaring, and these combinations. We have a Jupiter here squaring the 8th. Maybe sometimes for inheritance, but not very common. The orb is a bit. It's still here. Okay, so let's look also at converse transits for the date of death of his mom. Again, Venus appears in opposition to the 8th house, indicating the death of a female. There's a trine from Neptune to the 8th. Okay, now I already did this rectification, and I want to show you just one aspect that we can use to rectify the chart in progressed sidereal solar returns. Now this is a progressed sidereal solar return is basically a solar return, but we correct the precession and we progress it. It's very simple. It's not very complex. Sounds fancy, but really it isn't. No, I just really need to remember which event was it for? No. Okay, it was this one. It was for the death of mother. Okay, and of course we see here Mercury right on top of the cusp of the eighth related to death. Mercury, a neutral factor, certainly justifies the event. Now the orb for PSSR is around 12 minutes, and what we can do here is we can just lock this in Mercury and the 8th house cusp to an orb of 8 minutes plus or minus, and we can search within that range using our Polaris. I hope I'm making sense to you here. It's not. It sounds very difficult, but really, if you just understand it, it's very, very simple. Now, universal time, his birth time is 22:22, which is 10:22 at night. So if we go 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after, which is an acceptable time range, given the transits that we saw with the orb that we're using, which is 6 degrees and 30 minutes again. Let's use here a sorry, my maths are very bad, so okay, so we lose 26. We're 4 minutes off, but it's fine. So the reason is this software, usually the birth time is here somewhere in the first 3, but this is actually the real birth time that I came across, and let me just explain why. I believe I remember it's this one, but let me just check very fast, and I'll tell you why, and you'll find it very pleasant and surprising. Okay. It was a bit difficult because the software gave me the time all the way down here with a very low score, 28. So that's why I found a bit of difficulty. But let me just explain this for you very quickly, and you'll see how it makes absolute total sense. Now, if you look at the date of death of his mother, we see here this Saturn, it reaches in converse motion, it reaches a conjunction with the 8th house. So if we go here, secondary progressed, and just type in the date. We need converse, so we check converse, and we will see here this Saturn is right right on top of the 8th house, and the orb here for this aspect is 8 minutes. For Jupiter and Saturn, it's 8 minutes in secondary progressions. If for the rest of the aspects, 12 minutes. Sometimes it's a bit more. Not the rest. The moon has different aspects. The nodes and the outer planets have also different aspects. If you're interested in more information about secondary progressions, you'd have to check the book by the famous Spanish astrologer Juan Estadia. So if we just use my corrected time here, which is this one, with the secondary progressions. Now these are the way these secondary progressions are calculated. These are using the solar arc in right ascension. So you see here the Saturn right on top of the 8th, justifying the death of his mother. So when it matures, when this Saturn goes goes backwards from here to here, in converse secondary progressions in the topocentric system of houses here, the major event that happens is the mother dies. And the supporting aspects that we have here is that at the same time, the 12th house moves to a square with the moon. So it moves from here, this 12th house here, moves from here to here in converse motion, and it squares the moon here. So you can see it's 25 degrees and 3 minutes and 12 seconds of Cancer. And my cat is being a bit annoying here on my desk. This is just one supporting aspect. Another aspect here is the moon square the part of fortune in direct progressions. These are converse, so we need to cast a different chart for this. In primary directions, not a lot appears here. It only appears in secondary. For the death of the father, we have a very important trine from Pluto to the midheaven and IC. Also here, this Saturn in conjunction with Mercury justifies the event well. Sextile between the 12th and Pluto, and opposition from the 12th house to Venus. So Venus is here, the 12th house moves in progressed motion from here to around here, where it's at 13 degrees and 56 minutes. Death of father also, Sun square sextile Saturn, progressed to progressed aspect. Okay, so let me show you one other confirmation here that we can use, which is solar return aspects. Now, solar return aspects are basically just the aspects from the solar return imposed on the radix. And this is basically a predictive technique. We can also use it to confirm or verify a birth time. So here for the death of the father here. Okay, the first one is for the mother. This is for the mother, okay? Solar return aspects for the death of the mother. Okay, here nothing appears. And by the way, the orb I'm using here is 1 degree. You can extend it to 1 degree and 30 minutes. So here we see the Mercury on top of the 8th and solar return aspects. I have for the death of the father very important aspects that confirm my rectification. Look at the south node, 8th house. This is basic. The outer ring is the solar return, and the inner ring is the base horoscope. And if we just calculate here the orb, which is so the orb here is 46 plus 16, 62 minutes. Okay, it's only 2 minutes off, but it's fine. 60 minutes, 65 minutes, 75 minutes, 1 degree and 30 minutes. It's all good. But really the determining aspect for me in this rectification was the maturation of the Saturn with the 8th house and secondary regressed. Here another aspect for death. We see the Saturn opposing the 8th, and the orb is precisely 63 minutes here. Now this is the rectified horoscope of Buckethead. Here what we see here is basically his profundity, his boundlessness, mental boundlessness, because of course Neptune is a profound and boundless planet in contact with the 3rd house. It makes the intellect profound and boundless. There's an opposition here from the Sun over this axis, creating tension. This also supports him in his production. Very creative and musical. Now also this opposition here is receives a sextile and a trine from Jupiter and Pluto in the 12th. Of course, the 12th house, hidden activity, his studio basically. So it's the same thing here with this Mars Mercury, his shredding on the guitar. Also receives a trine and sextile from Venus in the 7th, which relates here to communications with other people. The Mercury, this opposition here and this placement here, traveling to different places for musical concerts. Now, one of the determining factors here at the level of health is the weakness of the heart. Now, the weakness of the heart is seen basically in the placement of the Sun in the 8th. It receives a trine from a retrograde Jupiter in a bad cosmic state. These three trines here from these three planets from a house, from a negative house related to health, do not favor the health of this organ at all. Now, he has problems in the way the heart beats, and of course we know Jupiter rules arterial circulation. It's in a bad cosmic state and in conjunction with a malefic in a bad house, and it's this connection, this trine here, not favorable for health. This connection here. Also, one other thing we can add at the level of health that's negative. This Uranus in conjunction with the ascendant. Of course, the ascendant is a very sensitive point at the level of health, and Uranus is a very electrical planet. So this is the root cause here for his irregular heartbeats, which he's been taking medication for. So this is it for Buckethead. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel, and thank you for watching.